Blue light flashing down the railroad track, blue smoke rolling from the old smokestack. Oh, blue train, don't leave me behind.
Hello folks, welcome to Outdoors with Bud. I'm your host, Bud Fields. Hey, you remember years ago the popular recording group called the Beach Boys? They had a song out that was called In My Room. Well, that's precisely where we are today. My cameraman, Mr. Tim Turner, and I are sitting here in my den in Galveston, Indiana. Thought we'd do a little bit of a segment right here from where the Outdoors with Bud program actually originates. I've had a lot of people contact me and ask me information pertaining to fishing line. Well, when you enter a sporting goods store, you're going to notice a huge, mind-boggling selection of fishing line. And now you can become intimidated, and you can also be undecided on which line that you really want. Well, there's pros and cons to basically any line that's available. What I'd like to do is talk to you about the three main fishing lines that's available on the market. I'm going to talk about monofilament first. Monofilament is probably the most well-known. It's the most affordable. It will cast your lure farther. It will cast it smoother, and it's got excellent knot strength. Now, the thing about monofilament is it retains memory. Now, people want to know what is memory. Well, if you've ever been out and you've made a cast, you've seen the little pigtail line squirrely cues going out, that's line memory. Now, it gets that memory, as you can see, like on this particular brand right here, on this spool, it's rolled up. Well, when you take the monofilament off there, a lot of times it's going to remember the shape of that cylinder. Now, that's one bad thing about monofilament. It always retains that. Now, there is some products out on the market that if you get those little curly cues in your line, just like this Reel Magic, you can spray some of this on right on your reel, and it'll reduce a lot of that. I had some guys even tie one end of their fishing line to a tree or a fence post, pull straight back and put some pressure on it. That will also relieve it. But monofilament has got strong points and it's got weak points too. But the angler has to choose each situation for what he's wanting it for. Being more affordable, monofilament is probably what most beginning anglers are going to use. You can use it for your pan fishing applications. You can use it for bass fishing. You can use it for cat fishing. And it comes in a different pound strength and everything. I mean, you can get it anywhere from about a 2 pound for ice fishing upwards of 60 to 80 pounds. Monofilament can be a good all-around choice depending on your application. Okay, we go from that, we go to fluorocarbon. Fluorocarbon is a good trade-off. It's very strong, it's less buoyant. When it gets in the water, it basically disappears. The fish will not see it. The fish will not see your line. We've had some people say, well, if I use a bright color line in clear water, the fish see it and they will not hit it. There's situations where since my eyesight's not as good as it used to be, I like to see that line because it helps me detect the subtle hit. When the bass hits, you don't always feel that tap, tap, tap. You may see just a little twitch in your line, and that's your indication to set the hook. The thing about fluorocarbon, it's also less affected by sunlight. It's also less affected by chemicals and gasolines. It's very strong, and it's not water absorbent. It'll sink fast. When you cast it out there, instead of it kind of floating on the water for a while, it will start sinking very quick. Now, it does not stretch as much as what some of your monofilament lines will do, which a lot of guys like that. It makes setting the hook a lot easier. And it's also more expensive than your monofilament. Your monofilament is the most affordable of anything that I'm going to show you today. Another type of line that a lot of guys are going to is referred to as braided line. Braided line is the strongest line available. A lot of people likes to compare it, figuratively speaking, to like what you use on a block and tackle. You need something sturdy. A lot of guys like this if they're going to be fishing in a lot of cover. For instance, if you're fishing in a bass tournament and you're fishing in lily pads, you set the hook. You want that line not to stretch. You want that hook to, to set in that hook, fish's mouth and get it coming to the boat in a hurry. If you're fishing around lily pads, if monofilament gets wrapped around the lily pad stem, with the pressure that you're putting on that fish with that rod and reel, it will actually saw its way right through that. Now, as I said, there's very minimal stretch. The thing about monofilament that you really got to watch is you can damage your equipment. Where it runs through the line guides, it's more abrasive. Inside of your line guides on the rod, and I'll show you that here in a little bit, there's little ceramic pieces most of the time. A braided line will hit that and actually rough that up. Anytime there's a little nick on that little ring in there, I'll show you how to check that also, you can actually cut your line and it will cost you the fish. And a lot of times your braided line could be 3 to 4 times more expensive, which makes it less of a popular choice for the beginning angler. Now, I want to relate something to you. I've had guys tell me that they've gone to their local thrifty mart and there's been a clearance box. Maybe they've bought a 500-yard spool of fishing line for less than $5. They said that was a bargain. Remember this, the weakest link between you and that fish is your fishing line. I'm going to give you a situation that was true. Before I retired from Chrysler, I had a good friend of mine that had been wanting to go to Mexico. Mexico is well known for their bodies of water that has trophy fish. It's not unusual to go to those bodies of water in Mexico and catch 15, 16, 17, 18 pound bass. A bass of a lifetime. This guy goes to the thrifty mart. He buys a spool very similar looking to what I'm holding up right here, but it was in that clearance box for less than $5. There's a reason it was in that box. It was because they was having difficulty selling it. They had to mark it down to get it out of inventory. He bought that spool of line. He goes out there, pays a lot of money, takes his time away from his family on the vacation. He goes out there and he hooks a nice bass. He's bringing it to the line, to the boat. Before his guide can actually net that fish, that line breaks. Now, looking back in retrospect, did he save anything by buying that $5 clearance line? No, he did not. I always say, since the weakest link between you and the fish is, do not scrimp. Do not try to save a few bucks on your fishing line. Save a few dollars on your rod and reel combination. Maybe save a few dollars on some of the baits and the lures that you use. Your fishing line is the best thing to not scrimp on. Now, there's many different companies out there. Of course, there's Stren, there's Trilene, there's Yo-Zuri, there's a Cajun line, there's a Cephix. Buy a quality manufactured fishing line. Now, okay, how do you know if it's any good or not? What I like to do, and I hope maybe I can show you here, on the top of the box, I like to take a magic marker or a Scripto pen, and I'll write on there when I purchased this. Just like this was in June of 2012. Normally, there's about a 2-year shelf life on fishing line. Anything much over that, you may be able to get by with it if you're fishing for smaller fish or brim, bluegill, crappie, perch. But if you're going to put money on the line and fishing bass tournaments like I do, you don't want to put a piece of line on there that you might just pop at one time and it's going to break. Now, all these lines, you can buy them clear to where, like I say, they're pretty much invisible in the water. Just like this line right here is red. I've got some just like this is a fluorescent green. I like it because I like to look at the line and see what the line's doing. Now, I just happened to glance here on this Stren. This was purchased in October of 2012. So this is still pretty good shape yet. But if you get your line, you got to take care of it. I suggest storing it in a clean, dry, shaded area. I usually keep mine in the drawers here in my den or out in the cabinets in the garage. But if I go through there and if I notice that maybe I've got one that's maybe 3 years old, I will replace that, or I'll give it to my grandkids so they can use it on their farm ponds, just fishing for the smaller fish. But don't scrimp on your fishing line, because if you get one chance at a trophy fish, you do not want to lose it. Trust me.
Blue light flashing down the railroad track, blue smoke rolling from the old smokestack, old blue train.